Hey, everybody, it's Friday, January 26th, 2024. Welcome to the Giant Bombcast, Revengeance. I'm your host, Jan Ochoa. And today, we're doing another little review cast. We're going to have an extended conversation about a video game, and just a singular video game. And that video game this week is Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Spoilers, maybe? Who knows? I don't know. Maybe we'll say something. I don't know. And forget the rest of the GB crew. I needed to assemble my own crime mob, my own crime family, an elite row of people with unique gimmicks that will endear our hearts, that you will want to woo and have a drink with, perhaps, and maybe pass a cardboard cutout in a panic at night. Perhaps. Joining me today on Bombcast Revengeance, Imran Khan.
Aloha.
Oh God, my friendship with you just went up, just skyrocketed after
we
that.
are now buddies.
That like a little shaka to me, just like, oh God, I'm filled with friendship now. Talking about being filled with friendship, Jesse Viteli in the building.
Hey, what's going on? I'm gonna throw up two
shakas. Two shakas. Oh my God.
What a
All right.
one-upper.
What a
What
one-upper.
like, I only do
What
one.
I'm here
Just like,
for.
shit, I can handle this. I know exactly what to do here.
All right. Last but certainly not least, friend of the pod, friend of the website. And I'm sorry that you've had to show your parents odd pictures of all of my compatriots. Lex Luddy in the building.
Yeah, that they judge me. They judge me quite harshly on that one. I was gonna say I have a hard out because I have like an orphanage I gotta run after this.
Oh, I mean, it's all right. The orphans can wait. I hope they're not shoot orphans, or real orphans, I should say. But we've been playing a lot of Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. I'm going to be honest here, folks. I haven't finished it because I spent too much time playing, because I've spent too much time on the island, and then I found poker. And it's been real bad for me. I don't know if you all know this, but I am going through my poker phase real bad right now. And it's...
Well, actually, Jan, this is an intervention about your poker phase.
Oh,
Yeah.
So we're here because we love you, and we want you to stop playing virtual poker.
okay.
Jan, remember when I sent you that link to the roguelike poker game the other day?
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, that was a test. You failed.
Yeah, I failed that test because then I immediately downloaded the demo. But I'm assuming, and I believe, all of y'all have finished Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth.
Yes.
We'll just go around the room, like, immediate thoughts. Jesse, we'll start with you. What do you think? You hate this game? Is it the worst game you've ever played?
So I feel like I'm on the lower end of the poll here. I like the moment to moment of that game a lot. I like all the sides, most of the side stuff. I think that story just doesn't come together for me in the end. And it kind of left me a little disappointed. I've talked to a few other folks about it, and like I think the more I talk about it, the more I'm just kind of like, didn't quite come together for me. But that being said, still had a blast playing through this game. I think there's a lot of great stuff here.
Okay. Lex, I believe you're on the other side of the fence from Jesse here. I believe you gave it a 10 out of 10 on Shack News.
Yeah, which everyone knows means perfect, means without flaw.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah. That's
As
what
good as
that
Breath of the
number means.
Wild or better.
Yeah, It's literally nothing could ever be better than it. All video games from now on start below this. But yeah, I really loved it. I think something that will come up a lot as I talk about my thoughts on it is it's been quite a personal game for me. I played through the entire series of the Like a Dragon stuff, pretty much all mainline games, Judgment, Ishin, bit of Dead Souls, all in the last 14 months. I played 0 and 7 years prior, but I hadn't gone back to the previous games. So it's been like a long journey for me, and then story elements combined with things that have been like going on in my own personal life led to the story hitting really, really hard for me. And I think that what they do with Kiryu and Ichiban and the way that those two characters play off each other really fucked me up. I really love what they do with that. And yeah, I think it's fan-fucking-tastic.
Lovely. Lovely. Imran, your immediate thoughts from Into
I
the
never
Wealth.
played it.
Oh,
Well,
well,
no,
I'm-
I really love the game. I gave it a 9 on my Patreon review, and I was like, I'm kind of the opposite of Jesse here, where holistically, like the moment to moment gameplay was like fine and compelling, and like it's a like a Dragon / Yakuza game, but the whole experience for me, including where that story went and where it meandered and where it slowed down to a point where I didn't really know where it was going. I think that all worked for me in a way that like Lexi said, the game has personal resonance depending on where you are in your life. And for me, like I recently lost my job, such as the way Ichiban does early on in that game. And like that thing where he wakes up and just looks at his phone immediately, and just like that, as someone who was sitting on my couch in a shirt I had been wearing for a week in my underwear and being like,
hot.
yeah, no, that's what unemployment is like. Like that, there are a lot of little moments in this game where I went, okay, they thought about what, as fantastical and as stupid as this game can be, they thought about what a human being would interact with this and how they would feel about this in a way that I don't feel like previous Yakuza games did as successfully.
So I'm not as super familiar with the Yakuza series. I've dabbled in, I want to say most of them, but never completed a lot of them because of how gargantuan that task actually is. Except Like a Dragon, the original one. Absolutely love that one. How does that, Imran, you touched on that, ranking it amongst all of them, but how does this land for all y'all in the greater pantheon of the Yakuza verse? I hate saying verse, by the way.
For me, I finished it thinking, to go back to what Lexi was saying about like top does not necessarily mean perfect. I think Yakuza 0 has long been my favorite Yakuza game since I played it. There's never been any question about that, but I finished this game going, I think this is my favorite Yakuza game.
Mhm.
It's not better than 0 in every single way, but it's better enough that I think maybe with some distance that idea changes, but for right now, I think that is my favorite game in the series.
Okay.
Yeah, and I actually did a ranking of Yakuza games this week because I was curious how my feelings had borne out on them. At the top, we have Near Perfect Video Game, and that's Infinite Wealth, Lost Judgment, and Yakuza 0. Then we have Absolute Bangers, which is Like a Dragon, The Kaito Files, Yakuza Kiwami, Judgment, and The Man Who Erased His Name. Pretty Good Time, Yakuza 6, Kiwami 2, and Ishin. Flawed with some good moments, 4, 5, Dead Souls, and Fuck Them Kids, Yakuza 3.
Wow, you actually have a whole ranking system. That's okay. You came prepared, Lex.
Yeah, I was willing to be brave enough to say Fuck Them Kids and put it into like written word.
That's really going to interfere with the orphanage you have to help out at later.
Yeah.
Imran, you were
I
going
will
to say
say 3 is not a game I'd ever recommend people play, but like having played that game, there's payoff in 8.
Oh yeah.
There's so much actual good in 8 and Man with No Name. Like having played that game, you actually get like a big emotional bomb going off.
3 is an important game. It's definitely not the best.
It sucks, but it's an important game.
It is aged really poorly. It's aged like worse than some of those PS2 games in a lot of ways. But as like a bit of storytelling, I think it's super important. Something that's come up a lot with like the few criticisms I have seen for this game, and I was like talking out with someone, was that like people felt that Ichiban hasn't gotten as much character development as he did in the previous game. I think that when you compare it to the other Yakuza games is actually pretty common. The whole entries where Kiryu as a guy doesn't really change from beginning to end. Like things happen to him, but he's still basically the same character. And he still has basically the same motivations and feelings towards the world. I think that this game is really interesting because it uses Ichiban as like that character that was really well developed in 7, and it uses him to round out the story of Kiryu in a way that they couldn't really do if it was just Kiryu. Something that I think is really important about this game is like Kiryu is obviously sick in it. They've shown in the marketing, and Ichiban, the kindness that he's shown others throughout the years, to his party members is now being paid forward through his party members with the people that are hanging out with Kiryu. And Kiryu is someone who isn't good at accepting help. And he is only able to start to accept help because of the people around him. And I think that the way that the game wraps that up in the end, I don't want to spoil anything, but the choice of who Kiryu fights in the fight, like who fights who in the final boss fights, is really interesting when you look at the series on a whole, because it is very much so Kiryu like breaking a cycle, and basically preventing like the Yakuza games from happening again for Ichiban. I think it's really, really fucking impactful, and it is really quite like, it's beautiful in a way for even the meta narrative around these games of OGG having a new studio heads and having new leadership and changing the series name and just saying like, no, this is now like a Dragon. This isn't a Yakuza story. This is something else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was in when they revealed this game, I was in Tokyo at the actual event, and I was so disappointed when they showed Kiryu. I went to the RGG head like the next day. I was like, "What are you doing? Why are we bringing Kiryu back again?" And like, I realized that what they said, the answer was the PR, Kiryu's story is not done. But like, I realized now they had more to say, and they had to like, yeah, we as the audience gave Kiryu closure. We agreed like, oh, the 6 was the good ending. It was weird he came back in 7, but he needed to pass the torch to Ichiban. And then he comes back in 8, and it's like, why? The story was done. Why, are you just scared? But it's about Kiryu accepting that closure too. About Kiryu like when Lexi was saying Kiryu and Ichiban play well off each other. I think like Kiryu needed a heart in that story and Ichiban needed a brain, and they managed to work together and like form one fully functioning adult. And I think like Yakuza 8 takes that idea and it actually gives it a lot of gravitas and a lot of strong, once again, I'm way overusing the word resonance, but a lot of resonance for people who have like suffered tragedies in their life and like are trying to convince someone there's more to life than just the things you do. It's the person you are as well.
Jesse, how'd you feel about Kiryu's haircut?
Kiryu's haircut. Look, we all go through like a midlife crisis and we gotta change it up a little bit. Kiryu's haircut is not great. I'm gonna be real with y'all. I don't love it, but I get it.
The gray hair really came from really quick, because like he had black hair in Infinite Wealth, which was like, or in Man Who Erased His Name, which was only a couple of years earlier, and he's just gray as a fox in this one.
Yeah. Also, he's just not slicking his hair back. Like, that's the only change he's really making.
Right.
He's deciding in the morning, like, nah, fuck it. I'm not gonna bother anymore.
My favorite moments in this game are honestly when they're like, is that Kiryu? And then he like takes his glasses off and they're like, it's Kiryu. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, damn, we're just really doing the like, oh, the glasses. That's why we couldn't tell. It had nothing else to do with anything. Now that the glasses are off, I know it's you, Kiryu. I see you.
To be fair,
even Man with No Name, he was still like, he still had the glasses on. Everyone's like, yeah, there's only one guy who fights like that. That's just Kiryu.
Yeah, I just love that bit. It's so funny.
I really do wonder, like, they never say this, and maybe it's to their credit they don't say it, but I kind of interpret it as like Kiryu does a shit job hiding his identity because he doesn't want to hide it. He wants people to know. He's just like himboing accidentally, like, I don't know, I who's Kiryu? I'm Joryu, whatever.
Yeah, I'm the bare minimum to get by, like Joryu. It's like, oh, all right.
It did start to grow on me, and then I thought about cutting my hair and just dyeing my hair silver again, but then I think I just need to get a little bit more ripped. For me personally, a big part of the Like a Dragon games and Yakuza games entirety is the supporting cast. Jesse, how'd you feel about the supporting cast this time around, including Kiryu, I guess?
I think they're all like pretty fantastic, and I think a lot of that comes through in the drink links. I would say, like, if I had like one piece of advice for anyone playing this game is like absolutely make sure you're doing the drink links, because I think that they help round out a lot of those moments for that cast. There's some stuff I wish kind of was in the, yeah, that's absolutely true. You get some really good skills from that. There there are like some drinklings I kind of wish were in the main story a little bit more. Like I think Tomizawa's was like something really important that happens early
Yeah.
on that like I wish I would have seen more of. But I think the drinkling handles it well. But I think that cast is really good, and I think they're doled out at a good pace. Like I felt like I was always kind of getting a new party member at the right time, and then they would come in and like have something to say and like something to bring to the table at that specific moment. But like even the new members like Tomizawa and Chitose are like I think fantastic additions to
Mhm.
this cast of characters. Like Chitose is absolutely like a standout favorite of mine.
Yeah. Imran, how did you feel about the crew this time around?
I really like them. I wish Song Hee had just a bit more to do in that game
Yeah.
because she is just sort of like she is in like a not ephemeral, but kind of a character that is there to move everything else along.
Mm-hmm.
And she
And
clearly has her shit together way more
Yeah.
than everyone else.
that's the thing. She had her shit together, so she's not part of like the drunken mess that everyone else is. But I do think what I loved about the cast is that everyone in their own way kind of exemplifies the main theme of can we redeem ourselves from a thing we've done before? And for like Tomozawa, it's very obvious because he's basically fallen with a bad element. He's tried to rob Ichiban. Like he was not a good person until Ichiban kind of rubbed off on him. But like the overall theme of that game is the Yakuza were not good people before, but now they're back in society. How do we reintegrate them? Can we trust them to be good people? And everyone in the cast thinks on that level. They think like, okay, I did this, but can I be good? Can people trust me? Can society trust me? Or can I, redeem myself from the circumstances of my birth and the way I was like brought up? And this even extends to Kiryu. Like it's
Mhm.
not, I don't think a spoiler because it was in the marketing materials that he has cancer and he thinks that sickness is in a more abstract way of thinking an irredeemable thing that he's like, okay, I've got this. Time is up. And I love that the cast just kind of has this running thought process in the back of their head through this entire main story of where do I fit in a society that has people like Ichiban in it.
Right.
And I think that's why Ichiban's like such an important character to have in this, because you see in The Man Who Erased His Name, like it's a very isolation game. Kiryu feels alone, and you can clearly tell that a lot of that game is about regret for the past and how things played out. And then this game, he's with someone with Ichiban, who is just this epitome of like, no, you can like make another go of it. Like we can start from the beginning. Anyone has another chance. And that starts to rub off on Kiryu. And for the first time in the series, you start to see Kiryu like think about redemption rather than just punishing himself. Because as a character, that's been Kiryu's character trait for like 7 games now, is like he'll do what's right, but it usually involves self-flagellation. Like it usually involves him excising himself, becoming a fucking taxi driver, leaving the Yakuza, all those different things. And I think that Ichiban's sense of positivity gives Kiryu something that he hasn't quite had in the other games, which is like a hope for things being better in the future. I really think it's quite well handled, those two characters and how they play off each other, even if they aren't interacting all the time.
We talked a bunch about the story and everything, but one of the biggest improvements for me personally is how they've ever so slightly fudged and adjusted the combat in this game. Specifically, I think it's very impressive to adapt Kiryu from a brawler and really adapt him really well with the style changes in the turn-based combat. Lex, are you a fan of turn-based combat? Did this turn you off at all, or were you into it?
So, like, I do love a bunch of turn-based games, but right after this, I was like, fuck it, Persona 3 codes didn't come through. I'm going to just try out Soul Hackers 2. And when you go, because I had it installed on my PS5 for ages, and I was like, when you go from, like, watching an Indiana Jones movie, and Harrison Ford is there, and you're like, man, this guy's got it. This guy's the real deal. And then you go and you watch, like, a really middling rock movie, like Skyscraper, and you're like, oh, this doesn't have it. This isn't it. That's the feeling I got. Like,
Excuse
there's a
me,
real,
Skyscraper is a cinematic masterpiece that totally
I'm sorry,
wasn't
Jack.
funded.
I'm sorry, Jack.
Oh, it's all right. It's all right. Go on, Lex.
Remember Rampage.
Yeah, that's
Oh
the
yeah,
one.
yeah.
I think of, right?
But like the game just has it
Mhm.
in a way that really fucking works. I think I've thought a lot about the small changes that they made because I watch a bunch of the speedruns for 7, and something that they were always super annoyed with was like the combat basically was do tenacious fist constantly and you'll get through most encounters. I think that they do a really good job at bridging the gap between RPG and brawler in this, not just in that Kiryu can break out into his brawler stuff later in the game, in that the combo attacks and the way that you can follow up really quickly, it adds this pace and the snappiness to proceedings that, like, straight up, I was like, how much trouble would I get if in my review I said Brawl PG? Because that would be stupid. I decided not to. But I really like the snappiness of the combat. And the great thing about that is that it also ties back into Kiryu being not the guy he once was. Like him needing other people around him for the first time to actually help him in these fights. And I think that works really well narratively, having this be an RPG.
Jesse, you're a big Final Fantasy 14 freak. How'd you feel?
That's me.
How'd you feel about these
felt good.
turns?
I like turn-based combat just as much as anyone else. Something that really fascinates me about this series is that when you play a lot of turn-based RPGs, you're usually on like a set map or you're just like standing in place, right? Like there's some games mix it up, but it's really fascinating that and Like a Dragon had this too, where it's like you just kind of get into a fight anywhere, and then you kind of like you have to think about every piece of the environment when you're getting into a fight. And so there were so many times where I was like, okay, I could do this combo attack, but then what if that combo attack hits them into the street and a car coming by hits them and then knocks them? And so it's like every time you get into like a random fight in that game, sometimes you just kind of like breeze through it, but it was really fun to be like, okay, well, like I could knock them over here against this wall, and then I could pick up this planter. And it's like you always felt like a slight change every time you did like a random encounter. That was really nice. And then especially some of the later fights, like boss fights and stuff, like start using the environment in really interesting ways. And that was fun to mess around with. But as far as like the little changes go, I think they nailed it. Like being able to just move freely within a set space is like the biggest thing they could have done, because that was like such a problem in the previous game, and it was super nice to try and be like, okay, well, I have a line attack and I'm just kind of waiting for this one enemy to like move 2 feet to the left, and then I could get 3 of them, and you kind of just wait for that moment. It feels good. It rewards being patient just like a little bit, but not too much, and I like that.
Would it be sacrilegious? I'm gonna get in trouble for this. I think this game does like the hybrid turn-based real-time stuff better than Final Fantasy VII Remake.
I think you're incorrect. I think seven. They're different
Brave
things.
take.
Yeah. The thing I've always found with 7 Remake is like those bosses are super spongy, and then eventually you're just playing like a spongy hack and slash.
I would argue that Infinite Wealth is also super spongy, especially towards the end. Like it doesn't have the same problem 7 did, where everyone was very spongy at the end. But like there are a lot of bosses that, if you had not kept up on the attack power on your weapons, which you don't always do, considering you have like 10 people to like keep track of, like you are just going to be in for a long, tedious grind at grind is not the right word. Long, tedious chipping away at a boss. That said, like most things in this battle system are better than 7's. I think they've really cracked how this battle system should work. The problem is these are 3D models working on a physics engine, so sometimes stuff just doesn't work out, and you feel incredibly robbed of strategy.
Yeah.
Because like there's like a combo attack you can do with your partners, but it works that like what sometimes the first person will sweep the legs and the other person will like go for an air attack. Sometimes the leg sweep doesn't work and the air attack just goes over their head. Or like sometimes the enemy will move at the very last frame that you're hitting the A button, and your well planned bounce them between these characters thing doesn't work. Or for some reason, some weapons or some job classes don't actually go where the arrow says they will go. They will just go like to the left for some reason. And again, like I plan to knock down a bunch of enemies like bowling pins, and I only hit like one. It's that kind of thing that I think like they need to work on stuff like that before they really nail this. Because I do feel like they are robbing the strategy of this and making it so it's more about fast menuing than it is about taking a look at the whole board at once.
Mm-hmm. I had a bunch of trouble with that actually when I was playing, or whenever I'd switch over to Kiryu, and I could never get the heat actions to properly trigger consecutively. Like I'd have a dude up against a pole. I'm like, all right, I did it one time where I crushed your nuts on it, and then have another dude similar position, and it could just not get it to work. But overall, like I really liked it. I'm a big fan of arrows pointing to a location of where they may be and
Pointing
where they
down.
might be.
I was pointing down, right?
Arrows pointing down. Arrows pointing to the left. I think where it's, I don't want to say it started falling apart for me, and maybe this gets addressed later in the game, but having to thumb through all of my specific skills to figure out who would be weak to what. I just wish like that process was streamlined ever so slightly. Or if
it would be nice if there's like that button in Persona where it's like, oh, you know the
analyze.
weakness, just switch me straight to the thing that it's weak to.
Yeah, I would have enjoyed that. But something I've spent ashamedly too much time, and I've already talked about it, is how do y'all feel that they put Animal Crossing in the game? And do you like the Animal Crossing? Jesse, I saw your guide.
The first person to upload a 100% completed island and during the review process, and it felt real good.
Jesus Christ.
I know someone else who was guiding that, and they were taken off it to go play Power World, and they were pissed. They were like, fuck.
Like 3 days into having code, I had like a 5-star island, and I had uploaded it, and I was just refreshing. I was like, somebody else upload an island. I need to see what this multiplayer stuff does.
Yeah, I think I went to your island, Jesse, during it, and I was like, wow, this is just way beyond anything I have. And I had already finished the Dunduko Island story by that point.
That's like the one thing I haven't gotten I have gone pretty far into it, but I haven't gone to like going to other people's island. How does that work?
I actually have not done it yet. I think Imran has, though, right?
It's basically like you see a list of people who have islands uploaded. You go to that. You can Sujimon battle some people there, or just like, and you get like a checklist of things to do, and you get points for doing the checklist. So you can exchange those points for just items on the island. It's nothing super involved, but it's like a neat little thing of like, oh, I guess they hit this little thing in here for one last thing to do in this minigame.
Like, there's a load of little things where you're like, oh, this is just a little thing.
Yeah.
And, like, the game just keeps on having a load of little things. Like, the mechanics in the Sujimon battles, you're like, oh, this isn't going to be that deep. And then you're like, oh, I'm evolving Sujimon. And, like, I'm caring about, like, all of this. And, like, there's tactics to it.
No.
There's a gotcha system.
Yeah, the gotcha system.
A gotcha game.
Yeah.
I did a lot of polls because I wanted to see if Kenny Omega was in there. But so like I haven't seen him, so I don't know anyone who has a completed Sujimon dossier yet. But
I almost have one. And I haven't seen them. The really high end ones are the DLC ones, and those just fucking break it totally. Like totally break the system. All of the DLC characters that they give you have like 200 movement speed, so it's just always your fucking turn.
Can you do PvP with Sujimon? Like against other players? No. Right?
No, I don't believe you can fight someone's uploaded team. So I fought Jesse's team and they destroyed me because I was not that far in Sujimon yet.
Damn, reigning champ on the island and the Sujimon. Jesus Christ, Jesse, calm down.
I like what I like.
I have to note this because I did not realize it until the credits. Muku and Gachapin are real mascots.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had no idea because they're like, why are they crediting Muku and Gachapin? And I looked it up, and they were in Thomas the Tank Engine. They were in like Ultraman. They have been in a lot of things. They're like Nendoroids of them.
For folks that don't know, Jesse, I don't want to say we coerced you to dress up into an Elmo costume during the Giant Bombathon. Part of that was volunteering, but every time I saw Muku, I would just see you in the Elmo costume, Jesse.
Elmo costume.
Just in the back drinking, just supporting the crew, just powering us through.
That's
amount of existential dread as well.
A lot of it. Honestly, Muku reminds me a lot of Elmo, so I get it. I feel you on that.
God, it's just like every time I'd see his face, he would give me a quick jump scare, but I'd be calmed down at the same time because he shares my same existential dread. I've seen a couple folks and I've talked to a couple folks that have don't want to say complained, but been a bit down on the side content in terms of like the side stories. I haven't explored too much other than anything coffee related because, as y'all know, I have a problem. I have multiple problems.
On the grind.
Back to the grind.
Back to the grind.
The actual grind.
And I need to stop documenting all of my problems on this website. God damn it. But how have y'all felt about all of these side story stuff and some of the side games? Like I didn't think I'd get much into the dating as much as I did, but I just really enjoyed the texting mechanic that you started to do with
That's real funny.
their fake Tinder, because it just felt fun to pretend like I was texting on a T9.
I stopped doing
shoot
that
your shot
because
comes up across the screen is so funny.
I ended up stopping doing that because I did everything right up until like the choose the emoji thing,
Yes.
and I chose the wrong one, and it like ruined the whole thing, and she didn't want to talk to me. And I'm like, this sucks. I'm not gonna. Basically, why I stopped online dating in the first place. Like, it was fun, but like I do think a lot of the side content does take a backseat to the rest of the stuff.
Mhm.
And like I maybe did the DoorDash thing twice. I did like there's an entire like Pokemon Snap thing where you take pictures of perverts. That I don't think I only did once. Like there was simultaneously too much of it, and
Yeah.
also the stuff was not not as engaging as previous stuff. But also there's never going to be one as good as the Cabaret Club like host thing was. So I'm always just going to be chasing that dragon.
Yeah, and I think something that you mentioned is something that I talked about on Twitter, and some people disagreed with a bit. I think that like the FMV stuff that they do with the dates is way, way worse than when they were like just people in the game who you would go on dates with and have sub stories with. It is way fucking creepier, and it's way more uncomfortable when it's like these voyeuristic, like one-on-one live action things. Like they're funny for a bit, then you go on to your third one and you're like, this is fucking weird. And I think that like the most telling thing about that is that she, the character who's like always fucking cursing, and she's like just curses up a storm, she was one of the cabaret people in The Man Who Erased His Name.
Oh.
And she had no story in that thing other than just like being boobs and you get rewarded for saying the right thing. And then in this, she has a story and she's like an actual interesting character. And it's like, oh yeah, you can still like have interesting women characters at the side. You can even do like love interest characters, but then you just have this whole segment that's like fucking kind of uncomfortable. I think like they should be better than at this point because they've done it better before.
Yeah. We recently moved my wife's office, which is why it's a mess back here, like from this room to the living room. My wife plays this series. She knows all about it. I was still embarrassed to do those FMV segments with her in the room.
Yeah. I've reconfigured my desk situation so my partner doesn't really see my screens anymore. Because when we do the Bombcast, when I was still streaming out of a kitchen, she'd occasionally look over and be like, why are there anime boobs on your screen? Like, why do we have to have this talk every Friday? I'm like, sorry, it's just how it goes here.
Just gotta normalize it.
Just gotta normalize it.
Ask Sean to stop sending you all of those boobs.
Yes, Sean, please stop. Anyway, Imran, you touched on this. Is there too many things in this game?
I think so. I finished the game at like roughly 80 hours. Given like not a review time frame, I probably would have rounded 100. Yeah, I think there are maybe too many. Like I didn't even finish all the side quests or all that stuff. Like stuff I really wanted to do, but I think at some point there's a part where you are as Kiryu just going to places that like mean something to him that he reminisces about. And I was like, oh, I need to get all this stuff because like I want to know all this stuff before I get to the ending, and like I want to finish Kiryu's story. And when I finally got them all, I'm like, there was not really a point to doing this. Like it's neat, but I don't feel like particularly more enriched for having to cram all this in one day. I think it is a lot more palatable if you were playing it at a not review pace, but like the trying to cram it all in, it's all just overwhelming and not a great way sometimes.
Yeah, the way you always have to like think about it is like, hey, if I had more than 2 weeks to play all of this, would I be enjoying it more? Like if I wasn't up late if I didn't have to get up early to play some fucking more of this? Would I be enjoying this side bullshit more? And like, yeah, it actually becomes way more fun when you're not rushing. I like some of the Kiryu reminiscing stuff, especially the more involved stuff. I think some of those are really, really good. And they bring back some characters who were done dirty by the series. And they also don't bring back some characters who shouldn't be brought back because their actors are problematic.
He thinks about Tanemura. That matters. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, oh, he's off in the upstate farm. He's doing great.
How do y'all feel about the torch being passed to Ichiban here? And I mean, it kind of already happened. Scout, I swear to God, you are an adorable dog. Not right now. Wrong. That's true. That's true. How do y'all feel about the... I swear to God, Scout, oh my God, we're keeping this in the podcast, though. She's gonna initiate a fight with someone right now, probably.
Yeah.
How do y'all feel about the torch being passed? Like the future of this series being in Ichiban's lovely but dumb hands?
I think this game has set it up almost better than 7 did. Because 7 was like a very blank slate of like, okay, the Yakuza is gone. What do we do now? And this game kind of reinforces the idea of it's gone, but that doesn't mean it's actually gone. That means that we still have just a lot more problems to deal with. And I think now I feel very good about Ichiban being the next like protagonist in the series, the next like main role. I do think with as much as I have praised what they have done with Kiryu in this game, they did make Ichiban look small a little bit in this one. And they need to come out bombastically with the next one of him being the sole driver of the plot. Or not sole, the main driver of the plot with the next one. Or else it's going to feel like he's less shaping the direction of the series and more just being taken along for the ride.
Gotcha. Jess?
Yeah, I think that like there's like a really important scene that happens pretty later on where Ichiban and Kiryu have like a really good conversation. And I think that's like the moment where they're like, the future is in your hands now, sort of deal. And looking at where Ichiban is at the end of this game, I think, like Imran said, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to just get him like kind of back up to where he needs to be for this. But they've clearly given him like a very clear runway to do so. And they've given Ichiban like very clear, like, here's what Ichiban is going to do next. And just because the Yakuza has been dissolved or whatever from 7, like the real work starts now. And I think that's the important message for Ichiban is like he has a clear thing ahead of him that he needs to do. And it was very nice to see Kiryu kind of be like, here you go.
And I think they also do a really good job of, I mentioned it before, but like setting him up to not just do the same things again, not just get in the same like fights with different clans, not just get in the same fights. Like all of the Ichiban stuff that we've seen so far has been a lot more focused on societal ills than like clan melodrama or infighting or families or anything. Something I think that like the ending of this game fucking nails is allowing Kiryu to have a moment of weakness and like just sit with it. I think that that's so powerful for like something that I've always said about these games is even from the first game, Kiryu starts out as like a deity. He goes to jail for like 10 years and then he comes out and everyone's like, oh, he's the fucking Dragon of Dojima. He's like already a legend. And then this game at the end just allows him to have a really nice, quiet moment where he's not the strongest guy in the room. He's not like the most powerful person. And it was something that the character like desperately needed. And was just to have a moment where he's allowed just be a guy.
Y'all could probably speak to this better than I could just because of y'all's familiarity with the series. But I was pleasantly surprised a lot playing this game with the social issues that they were touching on, and specifically of like, oh, y'all are going to mention the homeless population and how expensive it is to live in Hawaii? Oh, cool. Yeah, all right. And then just generally their tone with this game about treating like unhoused folks and the homeless population across the board. And also touching on stuff like police brutality and just like a lot of problems of even colonization in Hawaii that I was like, oh shit, y'all are going there. Is that par for the course for like the series as a whole, or is that something that may be unique to Like a Dragon.
They really honed their teeth on that in the Judgment games, I think. Because First Judgment is all about medical malpractice, basically. And then the Second Judgment is all about high school bullying. And I think they got way better at treating those issues with like the respect they deserve. The Yakuza franchise has always loved to bring in big issues, but then not really tackle them a whole lot. Like Yakuza 6 is all about Chinese triads bringing immigrants over and them needing shelter and being undocumented. But it doesn't really do a whole lot with that story, or address or give its opinion on it even. I think the Judgment games have given them a chance to like actually figure out what their opinions are on a lot of these things.
I will say this game does say ACAB with like its entire chest.
Oh, it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, like there is not a single good cop, and the only cop, like except Adachi, I guess, and he's not even a cop.
Yeah.
So like it like you go through there and you can clearly see they came with a mentality of, yeah, cops are real shit in America, right? And like, yeah, you are correct. This is roughly how a lot of things would probably go if you were an immigrant in Hawaii. Like you would find a lot of like racism and classism and corruption on the police force. I was talking to the homie Michael Hyam, and one of his issues with the game was there was a tonal whiplash with a lot of like the side stuff.
Sure.
And I can kind of understand that because like there is fun side stuff of let's help this rock band create a storm so they can film a music video. And then you go from that to this woman is being forced into sex work by a cop, and we should probably beat the shit out of this cop and stop this. Like, I do think this game, like, there are few social issues that it hits on with as much vigor as it hits on. Cops in America be bad.
Yeah, the cop that you encounter through the main story in the early bits, his conclusion that was reached was shocking, and I was like, God damn, are we gonna talk about that afterwards? Oh, we just left him there, huh?
That's
Sick.
Yeah,
like,
fuck that guy.
That happened, and like I was like, this is a Simpsons joke. This happened in the baseball episode of The Simpsons as a joke, but it's actually not that unrealistic to happen here.
I'm not gonna say I loved it, but
Lex,
go ahead.
All right. Something I was going to say was I really like some of their villains having a bit more complexity than they did in in 7. I think Yamai is a really fucking good character. I really like Yamai. And he's a great counter to Ichiban in the same way that Majima was a great counter to Kiryu. Like, he's just a fucking dirtbag, but he's also like, he does the right thing every now and again. And then when they reveal why he does what he does and why he feels the way he does, I think that's a really good character moment of like letting that villain breathe.
Okay.
And I do also think that like he is totally coming back. Because some of the post-game stuff that they do where they get you to fight bosses again with the DLC that they've released. One of them is like, oh, do like boss fights against imaginary versions of the enemies. And one of them is Yamai and Majima. And it's like, oh, they know what they have on their hands. They know that this character is like totally...
I think he is this game's Songhi, where they will be so popular they will have no choice but to bring them as a party member next game.
Yeah, Ichiban seems like he follows the Goku archetype of like, I'll fight you, but then I'll befriend you and give you a sensu bean, and then we're homies forever now. We were talking about this internally at GB, but where do y'all think Ichiban ranks in the RPG protagonist pantheon? Like on the greater scale, and that the scale can be towards your personal scales, depending on how you feel about someone like Cloud Strife or whoever like that.
Well, above the guy from the bouncer, that's for sure. Fuck
how
that guy.
dare you, Lex?
Woo!
Never speak ill on Sion Barsad's name ever.
It took you a moment to remember it.
I was just overcome with emotion. All right.
I will say he's very close to like top end.
Okay.
In that he has a character, and that like that character is someone who is fun to play as and fun to watch what they do. Like I really loved in the game that every time Ichiban mentioned running for office, everyone was like, You mean for like school? You mean you ran for office? But like, I will also say one of the down parts of this game is that Ichiban doesn't really have an arc. He ends it roughly the same place he does at the beginning, which is, I mean, great. Nothing can break him, but I would like for them to use further games to actually explore most of Ichiban. In this game, very early on, he finds out his mother is alive, and yeah, you get some degree of development with that, but like they kind of write it off real fast. And I wish Ichiban did have uh I hesitate to make it sound this dramatic, but I wish he had a little bit of pathos to like at least further an arc for him. I'm willing to let it go this time. We'll see what they actually bring for the character next time.
Okay.
But to actually be like one of the best JRPG protagonists, he needs a bit more to him than just golden retriever boyfriend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jesse, where do you fall with that?
He is in the upper end, but I kind of like exactly agree with Imran on this one. It's just like it feels like a circle, right? It feels like there's some high highs in this game, but then he ends up in the same place, almost like to a T, exactly where he began. And it's a little frustrating, and it's like one of my gripes with sort of how the story pans out in this game. But like he's so lovable that you like can't not want to take a bullet for him. You know what I mean? Like you.
But then
like,
he'd push you out of the way, Jesse. He'd take the bullet for you that you were trying to take
and then
for him.
I'd push him back out of the way, and this bullet would be going very, very slow, and it would be just us pushing each other back and forth. So it's hard not to love him because like he is so lovable.
Yeah.
But like we've only had 2 games with him, and like Kiryu, we've had 8, 9, 10. I don't even know how many games at this point. And so like I think there's more work to be done, but I think like if I'm betting, I think that by the time we have seen more Ichiban games, we will be, if not as in love with Kiryu, like him as Kiryu, if not more.
All right.
I think there's more to love. Oh my.
And I can't speak ill of my husband, so just pass me that.
Well, I was going to ask y'all. Okay, now we've established roughly where Ichiban lands in the greater protagonist RPG pantheon. How close is he from daddy to zaddy? Or is he in between, or is he completely still in the himbo scale of things?
I struggle to see Ichiban as any sort of sex positive character. Like, I mean, he is objectively he is, but like for me, he is a child.
He falls
and I can't
into
like move past that.
He occasionally
As a
falls into. He occasionally falls into
virgin.
He occasionally falls into the beloved fan theory that Captain America Steve Rogers MCU is a virgin, where he's just continually fighting for puritanical things, and that's where he may not be quite daddy or zaddy yet.
I will say, so Yakuza 7 had a thing where you could date everyone in the game, and there was a side quest where all the women would get mad at you and try and beat Ichiban up. That might be the only non-canon side quest I have seen in this series. Because
there's non-canon stuff in the DLC. They sell you it. They sell it to you.
There is canon sub-stories where Ichiban fucks, though, in this game.
Oh.
I will say that.
Yes.
Okay.
But like in beginning of Yakuza or beginning of Like a Dragon 8, he does like say, "I've never really been on a date." So he is not. This was the first real thing in this game of him being like, "So girls, huh?"
I will say, like, he might have had sex by time credits roll in this game, but I don't think he knows what sex is yet.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a very Goku like, oh yeah, is it like some kind of food?
Yeah.
Every situation he's in the sub-stories I have done where like there is implied sex, he's very much like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? What is this? And it's like, oh boy. Oh,
that was my dating strategy for many years too.
Fair.
I will say this isn't to say that the romance that is in the A plot is bad, but I do think the best romance in this game is between a crawfish and a lobster.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, love knows no bounds. We all know that.
I do really like the scene, which has no other purpose besides just like showing their friendship, where Namba takes Ichiban aside and goes like, "Hey, Chitose is cute. Are you flirting with her?" And Ichiban's like, "She's like 20." And Namba's like, "Yeah, so."
My
Yeah.
favorite scene in that, probably in the entire game, is when Ichiban is sitting down with Nanba and Adachi, and they're going over his date from the night before.
Yes.
And the two of them, there's this moment where Ichiban explains what happens, and Nanba is just quiet, and he's like holding a soda, and he just shakes it, and you just hear the ice ruffle. And then he just doesn't say anything. And it's like this perfect moment. It's like a
And then-
wide shot of the restaurant. It's so funny.
As Ichiban like slowly explains in greater detail the things that he said, like beat by
Yeah.
beat, they're just like, dude, you can't fucking say that, man. I know you've been in prison, but like, Jesus Christ,
And
dude.
so the most realistic thing is she says she's not mad. But
Yeah.
then you find out hours and hours later when she's talking to Kiryu, yeah, I was pretty pissed off by that. She just told him like she wasn't mad, and Ichiban was like, "Oh, good, I think."
Problems of being a himbo. Problems of being a little dummy. But he's my favorite dummy. Folks, we've almost gotten to the end of our time here, and I mentioned this at the tippy top before we started recording. I'm gonna ask y'all to give this a arbitrary score, but not how you think. We're gonna go around the room and give it an emoji. All right. The best emoji to encapsulate your feelings. You can do up to 3. I'll give you all time to maybe look at your recently used and think about what series of emojis you would like to give to Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Whoever is ready
And you
first.
know that I'm like a 60-year-old in a 23-year-old's body. I don't use emojis.
Well, Lex, you're going to have to explore the rich world of emojis. You can use like a building. It doesn't even have to be any of the faces. Audio listeners, everyone is concentratedly looking down at their phones
I have to
right
look
now.
at emojis and figure it out. This was a good pick. It's gonna take me a second though.
Folks at home, if you'd like to play along, feel free to throw in your specific emojis as well. I solicited some questions from the chat, and there were not really a lot of questions, so we'll go with this.
Okay, I think I have 2 at least.
Okay.
So a lightning bolt, because my baseball bat had a lightning effect, and that was pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah, a rainbow, because this game in its final sequence has one of the most homoerotic shots in any video game ever.
Okay.
He was just very tired.
Lightning and
I
a
like
rainbow.
The cruise ship.
And
a cruise ship.
And a cruise ship. Okay. All right. I like this.
I'm gonna go American flag, lobster, and the 2 guys wrestling.
I like that.
Kiryu in beast mode was just basically a get behind other character and throw them for a lot of damage character.
Yes. Jesse.
I'm going to go magnifying glass because this game is introspective. I'm going to go salsa dance lady emoji because this game is fun. And I'm going to go praying hands emoji because there's some cult like
something that's worth mentioning is that this game straight up like does the RPG thing of like, hey, you're gonna fight God, by the way.
It goes full Resident Evil 4 by the end of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Jan, you've beat Persona 5, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it basically does that towards the end, where it's like, actually, turns out you're just fighting the concept of religion, and organized religion in particular.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm all about that.
Can I say that character, who I'm not going to name because their like villain turn is actually like a thing, but that character in the Japanese language track has the most insane English voice acting I have ever heard.
Does. It's so funny.
Wild to listen to.
Okay.
It's like, how did they get like, because they make a big deal about people who speak English and people who don't, and Japanese actors. Like Tomozawa's a Japanese actor and he speaks like some English, and like it has a Japanese accent, but it's not as egregious as this character. It is clearly like this old Japanese man who is playing
reading phonetically. Yeah, and like it is kind of wild when all the other characters they try to line it up or fudge it a bit more. It is weird. Also, I was convinced that that character Wong To was Daniel Day Kim. Turns out Daniel Day Kim is Aniba, and I was like, oh, what? That Wang Chun looks exactly like Daniel Day Kim. Like, what?
Yeah.
I also learned that Danny Trejo's character obviously does not voice the Japanese dub.
Yeah.
But they don't pull his English lines for when he does speak English
Yeah,
in that game.
I wondered about
He's
that.
a different person entirely.
Huh.
And I'm like, why didn't you just pull the English ones that you got?
I wondered if it was like a contract thing or like they could
I
only
don't
use
know.
it for one language track or what.
It's very strange.
God.
Also, just real quick, I think this game plays real fast and loose with who can and cannot speak Japanese in this world, to the point where I'm like, there's like one sub story, and I'm like, why do you know how to speak Japanese? Nothing about your character says you could speak fluent Japanese.
Yeah,
Very,
everyone in
very
sub story
strange.
speaks Japanese. Occasionally, people will speak English in the main story.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole sub story about a guy who's like, oh, Japan stuff is for weebs, like I like America, and I'm like, bro, you are speaking to me in fluent Japanese. What do you mean you don't like Japanese like Japan? What are you saying? Very
Well,
strange.
thank you everyone for your emoji reviews. The emoji scale is going to be the new review scale here at giantbomb.com. Sorry to our sister website, Metacritic, for having to figure out the math on that. But folks, thank you for sharing your time. I feel like I want to take all y'all to an island and we'll just roll around on our segways and just shaka the denizens and citizens of Hawaii. Lex, where can people find you on the internet?
I usually wind up on this website every now and again, but when I'm not lurking in chat and annoying Jeff Grubb, you can find me over at Start Menu. I run that website. It's for young people trying to break into the games industry. Cool. We're doing cool things there. You can follow us on Twitter at the Start Menu. I also freelance. You can find me on Twitter at basically Lexi, both spelt with I's at the end of them. And I also live in Mike Minotti's walls.
Yep. It's a warm place to be. It smells like churros and popcorn because those are the scented candles that Mike Minotti has, and he totally got them at Disney World at Epcot. Imran Khan, where can folks find you?
I am now a free agent. You can find me on Twitter at ImranZUMG. You can find my Patreon at proscons, PROSEKHANS.com. Patreon recently fucked me over because they dropped everyone who is from has international currency and did not resub them automatically. So if you guys want to come sub to my Patreon, please do. I apparently really need the money.
Jesse, where can folks find you on the internet?
I am also a free agent. You can find me on Twitter, X, Blue Sky, whatever you want to, all the platforms at Jesse Viteli, JESSEVITELLI. I'm doing some guides for Shack News right now for Infinite Wealth, so if you need that help, you know where to find me. And yeah, you might see me pop up a few other places throughout the next coming weeks, but who's to say?
Yeah. I love all of you. I'm gonna maybe convince y'all to perhaps play poker with me online on this very website in the near future. I might try and infect all of games media with poker, and we'll get along that way.
Because we all just need a massive amount of debt. That's what the games media has been lacking.
We'll play for seashells or something, and we will trade seashells with each other.
Dondoko bucks.
Dondoko bucks.
Guides to poker.
Imran, I've bought too many books on poker, and I still don't understand shit. So it's gonna be great when we all eventually play poker, folks. Thank you for joining us for an episode of Bombcast Revengeance. A lot of lovely things going on the website and across the internet. Follow these lovely people, please, 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 please. I've been Jan. Forgot what I was going to say. Oh my God. What just happened there?
I was like, should I be saying something?
Yeah.
I've been Jan.
All the coffee and poker got to Jan.
It just started crashing, and I just started thinking about like coffee and then my own place in the universe. But my place today has been right next to Lex Luddy, Imran Khan, Jesse Viteli, and you, fine folks at home. Have a fantastic weekend. Kisses on the cheek. Pour a cup of coffee for your boy. Actually, maybe don't pour another cup of coffee. I've had too much today. Drink some water.
It's 9 p.m., Jan.
It's 9 p.m. where you're at, Lex. It's 1 where I'm at, so I can maybe warrant one more cup of Joe. But that's it, folks. We have got to go. We'll see you next week for another episode of Giant Bombcast Revengeance. I buffered for a second is what actually happened. I ran out of RAM.
Yeah. It happens.
And